Up, or we can do that easily? Okay, we're just gonna get started, and you'll figure that out in the 2 minutes until we're going.
Something?
Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called to order at 8:31 a.m. on April 22nd. Happy Earth Day, everybody. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to, first, I got to do a roll call. Alderwoman O'Neill, you're here? Yeah, oh, we can't hear you, but I could tell you were saying present. Alderman Thorpe, you're here?
Present.
All right, I'm here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right. Second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And Kayla, we have notes from yesterday, right?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from yesterday's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Ms. Garrity, floor is yours. The way we normally do this is you got 15 minutes for your presentation. We'll try to interrupt you as little as possible. Might just ask some little questions for clarity, and then we'll go through and each one of us have questions. We'll start with Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderman Thorpe, me, anybody else in the room who needs to ask a question, any questions that have been emailed from other council members, and we'll try and be wrapped up on time. So, Kayla, can you put 15 minutes on the timer? Yep. Thank you very much. You're up.
All right, good morning. Hi, my name is Neely Garrity. I am the Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office. So I'm just going to go over our top 3 accomplishments to date for fiscal year 26. Number 1 is just the increased mayor's community engagement. And this is the first 4 months of since the mayor has been put into office. We've done events such as town halls, ward walks, and office hours, reaching over 500 residents. We've also conducted staff roundtables and 2 all-staff meetings to interact and hear from the staff, touching over 350 staff members. Constituent services, we have a full-time constituent services person who started in March, and you can just, I'm not going to go over all these stats, but she's been hard at work. Number 2 accomplishments, just strengthening and expanding the mayor's communications. Not going to go over all these stats. We have obviously a presence on social media, put out a lot of press releases, do broadcasts almost daily, ceremonial things. We've been pushing out weekly newsletters from the mayor's office. We do anywhere from 5 to, a ton of speeches every week, a lot of graphic design, and then also just responding to media inquiries. Number 3, just our direct impact in the community. I'm just going to kind of briefly just talk about our outreach teams. We have an African American outreach team who recently did a Black History Month speaker series, reaching over 8,000 people online and 300 people in person. We had over 4,000 attendees at our MLK Parade and Festival, which happened recently. Our No Harm outreach team has connected with over 1,400 residents, 100 youth, and 14 different communities across the city. Our NAM team has delivered 6 opioid prevention workshops, and I just want to highlight there that our overdoses for the city are down 55%, and I think it has a lot to do with the work that team, whose one person, is doing. Our Hispanic outreach team attends a lot of events, hosts a lot of events, does a lot of case management as well, has done over 780 cases, and then also a lot of marketing online and directly to the Hispanic community. So performance measures, since December of 25, since we came into office, we're starting to track our impact. All events, we're requiring our team to track the number of events that they're doing and also the attendance at these events. So then we can evaluate whether those events need to continue in the next fiscal year. So what I laid out here is just some performance measures that we have started to measure. And next year when we put in our budget, we will put in benchmarks for the mayor's office to be part of the performance measures. All right, budget enhancements. We have asked for 2 personnel enhancements. The challenge that we face for these 2 different positions that we're asking for is currently the structure within the mayor's office is just stretched beyond our capacity. and I know I've already talked to a lot of you guys and presented on this particular position, a deputy chief of staff. Really, the deputy chief of staff is going to be a senior advisor that oversees key policy portfolios. An example that I gave was housing. Also just support the chief of staff and the mayor to just make sure that we are set up for success, and also be a point person for all city council and intergovernmental relations, which we do a lot of. I just wanted to point out that the mayor in the city of Annapolis is the executive. So they're not just a ceremonial thing. So we have a lot of demands coming into the office, high profile people we're meeting with, and a lot of government relations that happens. And then we have huge projects like City Dock and CNI coming down the pipeline. The deputy chief of staff is just a practical step to help build up the mayor and make him successful in Annapolis Works. And then the other challenge that we have is our current comms team, our PIO, is overextended and you can't really sustain what this one person is doing. She works a ton of hours, and especially during emergencies, there's really no backup PIO, which is just very hard to deal with and exhausting, hard to recover from. So what we would like to do is the current assistant PIO is actually a contract position. And by being a contract position, you are unable to work, if an emergency happens, you can't work over 35 hours. So we lose that backup support. So converting them into a full-time position would allow some flexibility and backup.
Just before you go on to the next slide, I just have to jump in with one thing that our
Sure.
attorneys love to remind me, that the Choice Neighborhood Initiative is not our project, it's ACA's project, but go on.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, non-personnel enhancements. One of the biggest challenges is currently we don't have a strategic plan. So we are proposing a solution of bringing on strategic consultants to do a survey with the residents and create a collective agenda. And this collective agenda is going to be not just the residents, it's going to be the staff, all the input that we got from the staff roundtables, and set a clear vision, including achievable priorities, as well as long-term strategies that eventually we can tie to our budget, and have performance measures that are tied back to this collective agenda that everybody agrees this is what the city should be focusing on. So those would be outside consultants. We also, our comms team, as I mentioned before, lacks the bandwidth to really focus on the long-term comms planning. So what we're proposing is bringing in a communications consultant who would add bandwidth to that team and help kind of prioritize the bigger picture comms plans that we need. There's city dock stuff going on, transportation stuff, we're always adding and upgrading. Another example is our website upgrade, helping make sure that we are doing the business requirements and thorough review with all the departments. You need somebody leading that effort. So that's another kind of area where that communications consultant will come in. And then the third one listed is just historically, we haven't really tapped into private giving networks in the city. So we're proposing a philanthropist consultant who would help identify potential donors, craft compelling fundraising campaigns, where we could build, in addition to the funding that we get from our taxpayers, outside investments into our infrastructure. And then our revenue from the PEG funding, this was an additional ask from the TV studio to cover PEG funding. If you're not familiar, our PEG funding comes from cable television, and over time, they're making less money. So that means we're bringing in less money. So that PEG fund, every year we're decreasing the amount of money we're getting from that. So that was an investment asked for to increase that funding. And just to clarify, that funding is used for equipment stuff. So like all of the new mics, for example, in this room came from PEG funding. Non-personnel enhancements, the challenge that we run into, the current capabilities in Civic Plus to do a newsletter, they don't really meet the needs that we need. The formatting is not great. There's a lot of things that are just clunky and not user-friendly, so we've been using Constant Contact, so we would like to add that into our budget, and it's for $1,200. I mean, we're sending out newsletters on a weekly basis, sometimes more. Another challenge that we have, line 2, is just the staff being overwhelmed by communications from residents. So we need a better way to manage all of the inquiries that are coming in. Indigov is a software that is part of Granicus, and Granicus is already something that the city government uses. So this will help improve our response capacity, just responding to resident requests. It's like a central inbox, better management, case tracking. You can assign, assign, the resident can review it, and assign it to different departments. So that is what Indigov is. The third platform that we're proposing, so this is all software, the city's primarily platform, what I've noticed is where we do our work is email. And, you know, going back and forth on email, you have to find something, you have to go back to the email, which isn't a great tool for collaboration and communication internally. So what we are asking to do is pilot a tool called Slack, and that's for internal government communication. It will allow us to coordinate better. It will break down silos between departments. There's also a whole task management system. We do use Google Workspace right now, but Google Workspace versus Slack are different. Google Workspace is more for productivity. It's great for sharing documents. But as far as tracking work and assignments, you come out of a meeting, you have action items, everybody writes it down in a notebook, and you're assuming that they're taking those actions. This would allow us to put it in a tool like Slack and track it and get pinged when you're due for something that you signed up for, and also allow people to go in and check the status of stuff instead of emailing for updates or updating spreadsheets on information. So it's kind of like a central portal for internal communication. And then the last one is just the city's lacking a way to systemically involve the public in decision-making. And so another software that's an add-on to Granicus is called Engage Headquarters. And this allows you to get actual community input, run surveys, forums, polls, and you turn it into usable data. So that usable data would help us make better decisions about where we're prioritizing and responding to the residents' needs. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put this in like a high level, what does this mean, particularly the software that I'm asking for? So the simplest way to think about these softwares is the Constant Contact is outbound communication. It's the government talking to the residents. So this is how we're handling mass communication like newsletters. Indigov is how we're dealing with inbound inquiries. Right now, it's being done in spreadsheets. Residents are coming to us. We need a way to handle the resident request. So this is like a casework management. Slack, you can think of Slack as internal communication. So staff to staff talking about things that need to get done and handling internal coordination on various initiatives and issues that we have. And then Engage Headquarters, you think about it as feedback. So residents shaping our decisions that we make in the government. And it's just a way for us to pull public input in a formalized way. So I like to say this is a shift to modernizing our tools, right? Setting our staff up for success, making us move to a digital government. And the cost of all those softwares is less than $60,000. All right. So you can see over time, our budget has gone down and then it's gone back up. I believe the main increase from 25 to 26 was the allocation of Annapolis United funds to the mayor's office, which was more staffing to our outreach team. And as you can see, we are also asking for more staffing through the deputy director and the assistant PIO. And we are also mainly asking for more contract services, contract support. So in order for us to get to Annapolis Works, we have to support the staff from a strategic level and help kind of these bigger initiatives like the website upgrade and strategic planning and the resident surveys. We need outside support to effectively execute those things. So that is why there is an increase in the mayor's budget, but you can see that we also decreased supplies and other things. And I just wanted to point out, bring up that we will be putting forth an amendment in this current budget to include the community engagement administrative position, which is a current position in our team that accidentally was not included in the budget. And I don't know if, do you want to explain that a little bit, Capri?
Capri Turner, budget analyst. My assumption, it's not a direct answer, but my assumption is that during the transition from Munis to our new NeoGov system that we're using for HR now, that it got lost in our reports. So we will be bringing forth an amendment to include it in the budget as it's a field position.
So this is basically an administrative error to represent what's actually already reality.
Correct.
Okay.
PEG fund, this just goes over, I kind of talked about this briefly earlier, but it just goes over, you can see our revenues are decreasing year after year. So we do have, I don't know, Capri, do you want to just quickly mention that we do have some reserves in the PEG fund?
Capri Turner, budget analyst. I don't know if I have to say that every time. Okay.
First time for the day is fine.
Okay. So we do, the PEG fund has fund balance. What they requested for their expenses for FY27, we only had to use a little bit of that to get them what they asked for expenses for FY27. The hopes are for FY28 to possibly use a little bit of general fund or additional other funds to cover the expenses that they propose for FY28. But for FY27, this meets what they asked for expenses.
You guys know what the PEG funding is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we heard it, maybe it was right before you came. Yeah, I think Neely covered it. Okay, let's say one more minute, wrap it up.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So this is just, I don't need to go over the details, but I've kind of grouped our team into our outreach team, and you can see the budget and how they're spending their money within each one of our kind of like sub-departments within the mayor's office. To the left is all of, their stats, and then I just wrote quickly like why their work matters. So I'm not gonna go through all the details here. I did the same thing for the Hispanic outreach team. Their budget details, and then the comms team, you can see the TV studio, how much we spend on that. And that is primarily staffing for all the broadcasts, taking pictures at events. We do video production like the State of the City, and also graphic designs. So that is all fully staffing money. And then the community engagement, which is our community engagement strategist. This is all of the events that we do for the mayor that we brought on board, all the staff roundtables, strategic stuff, and then also a lot of this person's time is spent on boards and commissions. We have a lot of reviewing and cleaning up of our boards and commissions and putting in processes and standard operating procedures in order to make them run efficiently. And then constituent services, the ombudsman, which just started in March. So that's it.
Thank you. Alderwoman O'Neill, you want to start us off?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Chair. I have several questions, and I will try to frame them as we go through. So if you could go back to page 7 of your presentation. I'm confused about the converting the assistant PIO position from contract to full-time, because it lists 0 benefits here, but they're listed on our staffing summary as an N9, so there are no benefits attached to an N9. That's my question.
So on her slide, it's showing what current for FY26 He currently has, he only receives FICA. I mean, the only benefits that come out is FICA. In the actual budget book, the N9 is the conversion for FY '27.
Okay. So, but above that, when we're talking about the deputy chief of staff, we're seeing what the cost is in total. So I don't know why we don't see the cost for the conversion.
Yeah, because I think it's because he's already receiving benefits as an employee agreement, and the deputy chief of staff is a totally new position. Is that correct?
Do you want to know the conversion cost?
Yes, please. Because I'm assuming that the above cost, the 195,620, is inclusive of salary plus benefits. But if we're moving a part-time contracted position into a full-time exempt position, we also need to see that benefit cost, because
I
that
understand.
is-
So the full cost, total compensation for that position, converting is $10,200.
So that would be added to the 58,670.
I think that she's showing the full amount of the salary for FY '27. The actual addition to what he's currently being paid is only $10,000, $10,200.
Okay.
But of how much of that is benefits?
I can give you the breakdown. I only have the total compensation.
It's-
Okay, I just think it's misleading because it
Yeah.
says zero benefits receiving as a contractor. When we're looking at the FY '27 budget, it's budgeted apparently. So I'd like to see the breakdown of that. And I won't
Okay.
belabor that, but I just feel that it's not a fair comparison if it's saying zero benefits, but that's not the case.
Yeah, and my apologies, I think I did not display that the best way. But we will share with you what the salary and benefits are, and then also what we're currently paying for that position and what the difference is for the cost for fiscal year '27. So we'll follow up with an email.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
On page 9, when you talk about the non-personnel enhancements, I know that our Granicus contract is not in the mayor's office. I believe, is it in IT or is it in central services? Is that one of the things that was moved to central services?
I think it's an IT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd just be interested to see what we currently pay in Granicus software usage versus adding another 50,000 in software upgrades, basically enhancements, I'll call them.
So you want to know what we currently pay for Granicus as a whole and then compare it to what these upgrades cost?
Yes, please. I believe about 3 years ago, we talked about the software conversion. I wasn't able to go back to look to see exactly which year, but I'd be interested to see, like, we've been a Granicus customer for a long time, and is that additional that's being added on? I think my other question was answered because when I look in the staffing summary, I didn't see our outreach listed in that, but so there's 23 employees, if we're at. Because,
I'm sorry, are you talking for the mayor's office?
yes. So in the budget book under fiscal year budget highlights, it talks about eliminating the special projects arts administrator position, but it doesn't say anything about adding.
Correct. It's going to be a total of 15 for the mayor's office. On that staffing summary, it also lists the 8 council members at the very top.
I want to go to Mitchell real quick, our PIO, to answer one of these questions. I think she's got it.
Morning, Mitchell Stevenson, PIO for the City of Annapolis. I think it's on the next page. The Granicus, the Engage HQ. This solves a tremendous problem that we have across multiple departments. The city has more than 100 capital improvement projects that are included in the budget books, and we do not meaningfully engage our residents on what these projects are, what they mean for their community, where they originated, how much they cost. There's a lot of information that we could deploy, and the County of Arlington, Virginia has a fantastic model. I met the woman at a trade show, tracked her down, found out that this is the model that they use. It's GIS centered, so you can go to your own neighborhood and find a project, find out where it came from, how much it costs, when does construction begin, when are there public meetings about it. It is a very comprehensive outbound messaging tool that we'll be able to use to communicate directly with residents about infrastructure projects, capital projects that are happening in the Annapolis community. So that is the Granicus add-on that Alderwoman O'Neill was just referring to. I just wanted to make clear what that was. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in before we move to, you're done, Alderwoman O'Neill, right? You said that was your last question?
That was my last question.
I'm going to jump in just because I have a couple that are related to yours before we go to you, if you don't mind. So let's start with these. None of these are in our budget book as best I can tell. Doesn't say it under enhancements, doesn't say it under contract services. So where are these? Are they supplies and other? Are they contractual services?
So the enhancement requests for the Constant Contact, Slack, Engage Annapolis, and IndyGov are software, and all software has been centralized to ITS.
Oh,
so
great.
you will see it in ITS.
Okay, that was going to be my next question is why don't we put this under IT? Great. Okay. Then the other thing I wanted to ask about going back to slide 7 is along with Alderwoman O'Neill's question about why the benefits are so low for the comms PIO, how do we have a 59% benefit costs, fringe cost, for the deputy chief of staff? That's higher even than we pay to police.
So the benefits are based off of the salary. It's FICA. It's fully loaded benefits. So this is the fully loaded benefits before they make their selections. In FY27, you will actually see them go down based off of their selections. We just anticipate that they're gonna select everything, and it also includes with a family. So it's not the true cost, it's just the anticipated budget for the benefits.
So for any position that we don't have in place yet, we would expect to see a 59% benefit rate?
It's based off of the salary, so no, it's gonna vary. Because it's FICA, it's Viva, it is pension and health benefits. We budget approximately 27,000 just for benefits, health benefits alone.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. So it's a flat amount that we're budgeting, and so for somebody with a higher salary,
You're
it would
gonna
be
see
a
the
lower
increase.
percent.
You'll
No.
see an increase in benefits for a higher salary for the Viva, for the FICA, and for the pension.
Right.
It's a mix.
Yeah.
So some things are responsive, some things change with salary, some things do not. But overall, what that means is that just taken as a sheer, the whole package as a percentage of salary, the whole thing varies as a percentage of salary because there are some elements that are budgeted as fixed amounts when we've got a vacant position, right? Like health benefits and some things like that. It's just flat amount.
So if I go and look at like in the fire department where we're adding 7 new positions, do they have a comparable benefit percentage, fringe percentage?
You'll see the same thing.
Okay.
We use the same calculation for all new positions.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to jump in before you. Go ahead.
That's okay, thank you, good morning. So the first comment I want to make about the presentation and the budget is I want to applaud the alignment between the budget and what the mayor said as a candidate and what the mayor is saying as the mayor and his commitment to communicate and Annapolis Works. So, so first and foremost, congratulations. I mean, it's a tremendous job. I'd like to first ask a question consistent with what the mayor has said. There's been a significant community outreach effort, and I'd like to you to evaluate for us the cost of that program. Presumably, it wasn't budgeted before, and I'm not asking you to comment on the impact. I'll leave that to him. But the cost to date of the mayor's community outreach program.
Yeah, so the cost, we have our community engagement strategist, Laura Richards. She's a one-man shop who does all of the events that are listed on the slide, the town halls, the ward walks, the office hours, staff roundtables, and all the staff meetings. Her time varies. She spends about, so this is her salary. I could give you exact numbers if you would like in a follow-up, but I do have kind of how her time is allocated. On the strategy part of it, which is like the staff roundtable part, it's about she's about 25% doing that, 25% doing event management, 25% doing boards, and then she also, 25% of her time is engaging with nonprofits, organizations, and businesses. So dealing with some of those broader community issues. In the beginning, her time, when we did the staff roundtables, I have it in my notes, the roundtables, it was like 3 to 4 weeks of planning those events, and then it's probably about a week for maintenance. So that means following up on all the things we committed to doing. So making sure that, we have to deal with all the directors in the departments of what we heard from the staff and what we committed to doing in those town halls, or in the all staff meetings. And then just to give you an idea of the town hall's capacity, a town hall is about 11 to 14 hours, I'm estimating, of manpower. It's 4 hours of planning from the community engagement officer. We have, and then staffing it is like another 2 hours. And then it's about 5 to 8 hours of filming from our TV studio. They've filmed every single town hall to date, and we've had over 1,000 views on YouTube of those town hall videos. So that's an average about 220 views per video. And the cost of a town hall video is $600 per recording. So that kind of gives you an idea of manpower hours, and I could run the numbers and give you exact numbers per hour if you would like. Our walks that we coordinate are about 2 to 4 hours, and why it's 2 to 4 hours is, the planning of the walk, you do the actual walk is an hour, and then there's all this follow-up afterwards. So if residents are providing feedback, we have to make sure that, okay, if there's a pothole and they need to submit it somewhere, that we're actually taking action to follow through with what we heard, or handing things over to our constituent service ombudsman. And then we also do the office hours, which are about anywhere from 3 to 4 hours per office hour. We do them monthly. And this is also staffed. You take notes, and then we're following up on all the things that we heard to make sure that there's follow-through action to respond to the residents.
Thank you. So this is probably the most important question I'll ask in the couple weeks here, because the challenge is the better the staff does, the easier it looks. And then it's really easy to be critical about the amount of staff. So I would encourage the staff to continue to communicate the amount of effort that goes into a successful communication effort. And I think you just outlined it really, really well. So if we could transcribe that or something like that, that'd be useful. Connected to that, the ombudsman, and with the change of administration, new ombudsman, new members of city council, there's a significant level of investment in the ombudsman. One individual working for the strategist. Can you just briefly explain what that investment goes to for the residents, the role of the ombudsman, and what is their focus area, and why is it worth a significant amount of taxpayer money?
Yeah, this is a full-time position, and in a lot of cities, they have somebody doing constituent services and somebody serving as the ombudsman. We have one person doing both. And I'll kind of clarify the difference between constituent services and ombudsman. Think of constituent services as you are helping the resident get through our system faster, understand how to pay their utility bill, understand how to get a pothole fixed. So trying to get them, we have those answers, we just have to guide them down the right path. So think of that as constituent services. A lot of our executive administrator picking up phone calls is a lot of constituent services response. But the ombudsman, think about it as they are serving as like a neutral party between the government staff and the residents, and finding where the holes are. So like kind of coming up with these systemic issues like parking. We hear a lot about parking. Making sure that we are coming up with solutions and possibly even legislative changes that can streamline our processes to help the residents. And these are these like one-off issues, you know, you're having trouble with permitting and there's like something you're missing. So really getting to the bottom of what's causing these bigger systemic issues. So think of it as like more of like a strategy, which then helps support the legislation change, and also just proposing solutions to the departments. Like, what if we did it this way instead of this way? Is that possible? So that's really the role of the ombudsman. And I mean, you can see just in 1 month, you know, responding to almost 600 emails, you know, writing 245 responses. And these responses aren't just like, here's where you pay your water bill. These are complex things that you have to coordinate within different departments and their staff to get the right answer to the constituent. 120 cases closed in a month. And we're building processes and systems that will help feed more information to the residents to hopefully help them respond on their own, you know, such as the website redo. That's a big thing. We're already making changes to the website when you go to the ombudsman page to make sure that the tools that we do offer are right front and center, so they know exactly like the frequently asked questions. So that's kind of my long-winded answer.
No, thank you very much. I think that's useful, and another answer we might transcribe. I think my last question is on slide 5. And we're on day 2 of Finance Committee looking at the budget. And I want to point out that you're benchmarking performance metrics. And this is a tough balance for the city. Some should have been benchmarked across the city and aren't. And some, as I think this is an example of, this is honest planning where you could make up a number and put it here and it doesn't really mean anything. And the answer next year would be, well, we made up the number. And so I want to applaud this, and I want to use this as an example as we go forward, where you have committed to stating, to creating benchmarks for the future. And that's actually not really a question as much as it is a statement. And so, Mr. Chairman, if I have, do I have another minute?
Sure.
The page about slide 3 about broadcasts this year, this seems to be a challenge, and I'm speaking specifically about broadcast. By my math, there's 237 broadcast events in 26, and by my math, 5 working days, 52 weeks, there's 260 work days. So we're talking about 1 day a month that this team is out, one event a day, this team is out there. As you look at modern technology and residents starting to get used to being able to watch events like this one online without having to come into City Hall, do we have enough investment in our broadcast capability in order to do what we need to do, not what we want to do, but what we need to do? And is this something we should be looking at to invest more in the future?
That's a great question. I mean, I would be happy to, I can share with you the calendar also of, I mean, some days it's 2 broadcasts a day. And it also breaks down the staff that it takes to set up a broadcast. So I think there's a lot more work that goes into the broadcast than people think. You know, it's a half hour to set up one, you know, an hour to 4 hours, depending on the meeting, and then a half hour to tear it down. But we do have a breakdown of all the people that work for the TV studio, hourly rates. So we could, you know, you can dig into how much we're doing. Another thing that's part of that is we are going through and doing a process evaluation of the boards and commissions, and just determining maybe some of the, we don't need to be recording all of them if we have them in person. And if we have them in person, then that could alleviate some of the broadcasting staff to do other things like the state of the city and be at events with the mayor to take. So we're still trying to kind of figure that out. And I welcome my PIO to come up to say more about the broadcast and that question, because I know she probably has some more to say.
I just want to provide some, Mitchell Stevenson, PIO for the city. I just want to provide some context because those numbers do not include August. We go quiet in August. So we often have multiple broadcasts, you know, starting from financial advisory or early morning city council broadcasts to, you know, planning commission, which can go till, or city council meetings, which can go till midnight or later. So it is not just a matter of one a day. It is making sure that we have capacity to start a meeting at 7:30 in the morning and go till 1 o'clock in the morning the next day if we need to. So yes, building capacity for our TV studio is very important. Part of that is that PEG fund where we're talking about making sure that we maintain our capital expenditures within this room, but also being able to take that on the road. And so those are some of the enhancements that I think, are we doing a amendment for that, for PEG? Well, doesn't matter. Don't want to put you on the spot. But yes, so making sure we maintain our capacity there and building it is very important.
So, thank you. I do not need the staff analysis. That's you. I guess what I would ask to get back to us on is really a yes/no question, is do you have the capacity in fiscal year '27 to do what you think is going to be required of you in this area that's so important? And if the answer is no, it's a one-word answer. If it's yes, what do we need to do on a budget to make sure you're able to continue to inform the residents? Because I do know that people are watching this, and it's a key part of what we're doing.
Yeah, and I'll get back to you with an answer to that, because I do think there's, you know, there's times where we're like, oh, this would be great if we could do a video tutorial on this, but we don't have the bandwidth to do it. So my gut is, yes, we could probably always use more capacity because you can always do more videos. You can always do more interactive things that would benefit our residents.
And I think I'm out of time, so I'm just going to ask one more question, and if you could just get it to us as part of the
Can I say, Alderman Thorpe, why don't we put it in the follow-up document that we have?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, great.
Is what is not in this budget in the mayor's office that you all need to get done, that you need to be in the budget that 6 months from now we're going to wish was there? And if you could just get that to us, and we'll put it in the document that we're putting together.
Okay, you don't want me to answer that now?
I don't.
Please, we'll put the question in the document for follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to dig in a couple places. The big changes to me here is that we're increasing salaries by about 20%. We're increasing contract services by about 50%. And we're kind of offsetting it with a big cut to supplies, which is really in the special projects category. And I'm trying to understand what we're cutting. That was not in the presentation as far as I saw, but that's a huge chunk out of supplies and other. What is not going to get done because of that?
Yeah, so one of the things, and Capri, feel free to chime in on this, is we had received a lump sum for Annapolis United. And some of that money would go to the police department, and some of that money would go to the fire department. We have now, in this budget, moved that money to those departments. So they don't have to come to me to get approved for that money. So that's one thing. And then the other, trying to think, that was probably the biggest one, because that's $40,000.
Historically, the mayor's community initiatives have been $70,000. Some of that has moved, split between No Harm and the Hispanic outreach. So that has moved to contractual services instead of being in supplies and others. And the only other thing that out to the other departments.
So it's listed for us as being special programs goes down and special projects goes down. And those two, I'm like, I don't know what that means. So is
Special programs is Annapolis United.
Okay,
So some of the No Harm salary and benefits used to be in contractual services. That has moved up to salary and benefits now.
Well, I think it was in
A
special
portion of it.
programs, right?
Yes.
It was in special programs, and now
And
it's
that rolls
in
contractual
salaries.
services, yes.
got it. Okay, that's helpful. I'm sorry, remind me, you just said no harm or NAM?
No Harm.
Got it, thank you. This is really probably more a question for the city manager or maybe it's for you, Capri. But why are these two new and one existing consultant not listed as staff? Why are we not putting them as contract staff?
So generally, so the city uses contract staff in a couple of different ways. We use the same word, but we mean a couple of different things by it. And in our casual usage, we don't make much of a distinction, but there is a difference when it comes to the budget. So for a lot of the contract staff that you see listed in the budget where they're included in the column, those folks are city employees, right? Like there's an employment relationship that's acknowledged on the part of the city. So that's one kind of contract staff. They have an employment agreement, right? That's typically how we will internally refer to them, as an employment agreement. And then you've got true contractors who are going to get like a 1099, and there is not an acknowledged employment relationship between that person and the contractor. So that's part of the distinction you see here is that for some of those folks, they are true contractors. They're 1099 contractors.
Got it. I think that answers my question. Kind of transitioning from that, and maybe our PIO wants to come back for this answer, but maybe. But it seems to me, so absolutely no doubt we need additional capacity relative to what we've had in the past in the PIO's communications role. My question is, why does this arrangement that we're currently being proposed of, we've got the main PIO, and then we've got an assistant who's relatively low grade, and then we also have a sort of, presumably if we were to hire them, very high grade consultant, as opposed to just having the main PIO and then having a second person who is a high grade, but not having an additional consultant. Do you get, like, those are two options. I'm trying to understand why we went with one rather than the other.
Sure, yeah, I'll take that. I think as far as the communications consultant, a lot of the stuff that they're working on is like interim things, like the website upgrade. Once we get past the website upgrade, like next year, we might not need a communications consultant, or maybe we only need half of that. So I think it allows us with a little bit more flexibility when we're really needing to focus on that strategic stuff because we don't have the bandwidth to do it, that we have the flexibility of bringing somebody on, 30 hours, 20 hours, 10 hours, depending on what's on our plate. And I also, what would you have to say?
There's a difference between the day-to-day operations of the Public Information Office. We are helping all 8 departments. We don't do police, fire, and recreation and parks, but everybody else, we are helping with public information, just ongoing communications, what's the fire sprinkler application process, what are inspections, what roads are closed, social media, press releases, road closures for boat shows, all of those kind of things on the day-to-day basis. Where I have really struggled with the capacity of the job are these big projects. Carving out enough time to be strategic and thoughtful about the website redo, making sure we're capturing all of our stakeholders, CityDoc, and I know CNI is not a city initiative or project, but I am the communications liaison for that project. I manage the website, I push out all the press releases, create all the flyers for the community meetings, all of that lands on us, whether it's ours or not. When we have those kinds of things, I don't have the time to be strategic, plan it out, and do it well because I'm always in putting out the fires mode. Having a communications person who can come on and help us to strategize and do these things right so that it's not always just putting out fires is critically important to how we communicate to the public and get their buy-in on these initiatives. You know, part of the challenge we have is we're putting things out, people don't know anything about it. If we can be thoughtful and pay out the information of why it's important to people, we don't have to answer those arguments later. And I think having that communications strategy person in there to take on the long-term big projects is really important for us to be able to get it right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And I would just add that, you know, if you're looking at the communications consultant cost versus, you know, the deputy chief of staff, as the question you asked earlier with the benefits, you know what I mean, that saves some money, right? And it gives us more flexibility. Sure, we'd love to have somebody in, another senior person like Mitchell in the office to support the PIO. Because I think there's plenty of work to be done, but there's also a lot of work, like all the citations that we do. There's a lot of stuff that gets done that is not at the level of a higher paid or higher grade employee.
And I also just, for comparison, other municipalities near us, Laurel, Bowie, College Park, none of them have a 1 or 2 person shop. You know, they're 5 or 6 people doing what we're pretty tightly run and efficient with what we do. If we could be a little bit more thoughtful, I think
Yeah.
we'd crush it.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Like I said,
Yeah.
clearly there's additional capacity needed just to question the structure. And along those same lines, is there a philosophy about why it does or does not make sense to have PIOs sprinkled in departments versus centralized?
I believe that would be a question for the city manager.
So there actually are a couple
Right.
of folks that are scattered in other departments. The police obviously has a position, and there is someone within the Office of Emergency Management that has some, bears some communication responsibilities there. On a day in and day out basis, police obviously probably has the most volume of public information that gets put out. That person also tends to provide some level of service to the fire department, just kind of public safety in general. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Doesn't
Fire has a PIO detail, so it's not always, but if there is an incident, then that battalion commander can call in a fire PIO who will come in and take on that task.
It's a retired guy who's a contractor, right?
So, well, no, so Bud Zapata is,
But Zapata.
who's normally working on as a fire.
Kenny White
marshal.
sometimes too.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of capacity in some other places where there's a little bit of heavier load. There's also within Department of Recreation, and she was here yesterday, who works on advertising and stuff like that. Not an official PIO, but provides some kind of graphic support. Marketing and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of capacity across the rest of the city. I think that one of the things that having a more centralized office allows, and having that extra capacity here does, is there's a level of coordination that happens here because Mitchell and the rest of the team see across the city. And I think that coordination and consistency in messaging is important. And so I think focusing here, I think furthers that particular good.
And I just want to add, I would welcome you to participate in a demonstration of IndiGov, which is going to help us. It's one of the enhancements that we have, one of the software pieces that is going to help us with some of our outbound communication, as well as some of the inbound ombudsman communication. But our ability to take things like a sanitary sewer overflow that, impacts just a neighborhood. We don't have to tell all of Annapolis about that. This will allow us to geolocate exactly the community that we want to speak to and speak directly just to them. So using a little bit more smart government technologies that exist to help us really almost communicate one-on-one with our residents.
Yeah, I think that's a good goal, and I'm going to ask some questions of IT about it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I just comment on this, because I don't want this conversation to end with it. This is what I did for a lifetime. What we do in Annapolis is best in class.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I agree.
to have the centralized communication, reporting to the mayor, where she can engage with the department heads and actually get the truth quickly, and reduce the number of staff we have to have across departments. I mean, I think I'm really impressed at the way we do it in the city of
Sure, I
Annapolis.
appreciate that, because I sort of have crafted this in my 7 years here. So it was not this way when I first came, but I appreciate that.
I want to make sure we have time for Alderwoman Alsop Johnson to ask any questions she might have. Okay. I don't think I didn't see your mic light up, but for the TV studio, she said not at this time. Alderman Savage sent in some questions. I've got some fun ones for you guys. One, just pulling from these. The philanthropist consultant, I'm editorializing and mixing it with his question. I think it's a good idea. I think we will make money off of it. I object a little bit to the characterization that we haven't done it before. I mean, I think there has been private funding, but I still think it's a good idea. His question was whether this is one-time use or something that we anticipate to be recurring. And then a question I'd like to add is, what are our performance metrics for that? How are we evaluating, did they do their job well or not?
Yeah, I mean, that would all be set in the scope of work, with the contract. And I think this is something, why you bring in a position like this and as a contractor is we test it out. We set the scope, we pick projects like big, City Dock or CNI or whatever the project is that we want to bring additional outside funding in. We pick those projects, set targets, We want you to raise $5 million for City Dock. We want you to raise $10 million for CNI and set timelines. I mean, it would all be in the scope of work for the contract. And I feel like that's how you measure it. And, along the course of the year of the contract and, by halfway, you should be hitting X numbers to meet your goals.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'll be interested to see what those end up being. That's all I have, and we're just about at time. I'll give time for my colleagues if anybody's got any burning last thing. Alderwoman O'Neill. Oh, Ms. Turner?
To answer the other part of that question, that it does not use one-time fundings for that.
Yes, thank you. I understand that. My question, and thank you for reminding me, I feel like I actually did not get an answer to it. Is the mayor's office anticipating that we would probably have this next year, or you don't know yet?
Yeah, I feel like that's where in an evaluation period, right? You bring the person on for a year, and if it's successful, then I think we either, decide to bring that position in full-time or continue keeping them as a contractor.
Okay, thank you.
We have a minute, a statement maybe rather than a question. We've talked a little bit, and your brief talks about updating the website. And the person right behind you is the IT brief. So, Mr. Chairman, I commend you for putting these two together.
Worked out.
At some point between the two of you, I would love to get a discussion, a couple minutes, about what the plan is in the next fiscal year to update the website. And Ms. Garrity, I'll leave it to you to say, you want to do it now or?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. We have a plan, and we have our comms consultant that's on board right now has a plan and a timeline and is starting to engage with the director. So we'd be happy to schedule a time to sit down with you guys and share that. We could even do it, I don't know, with the whole council if they're interested.
Okay,
Helpful. All right.
thank you.
Let's see a motion to recess until 9:35.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll stand in recess for 4 minutes.
All right, we're going.
All right.
We're good.
Guys, we're going to start.
Welcome partner soon.
We're good. Hey.
Meeting called back to order at 9:39 a.m. Again, still on Earth Day. Mr. Paquin, thanks for being with us today. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to you. If you can put 15 minutes on the clock.
Morning, Brian Paquin, Director of Integrated Technology Solutions. And away we go. And I'm going to say a lot. I'll apologize in advance. So one thing I wanted to say before we dive into the bullets in this slide is we kind of go through this with Finance Committee in any public discussion every year or whenever I'm up here, is that while we're very proud of what is listed in this slide, I think it's important to note that our operations team does a lot of work that we don't particularly discuss in public settings with regards to keeping the city safe, things of that nature. So there's more behind the scenes, and I always make the offer to talk offline with anybody that's interested in those sorts of that. That being said, the first one on the list is we've worked very hard in conjunction with the planning and zoning staff to make refinements to our enterprise permitting and licensing software. And I'm sure Director Jakubiak will discuss this when it comes time to discuss his accomplishments, is that there's been a significant reduction in the average turnaround time of permits as a whole within his department. And I feel our EP&L analyst on our staff and the amount of work that she's done in refining the product and generating reporting. The director and leadership in that department are now receiving real-time statistics as slides with on the homepage that they view every morning in that product. As part of, as you'll see when we get to them, our performance measures were new for this fiscal year, completely revised from previous years. And as part of that, we had to implement some new tools, specifically for help desk ticketing, trouble ticketing, and uptime monitoring systems for our critical systems. And those were rolled out in Q1 of this year, or Q1 of this fiscal year, I should say. And they have led to really good measurements for performance reporting. Our GIS team has worked with, we've partnered with a consultant. It's more than a consultant. It's a team that we've migrated our entire GIS environment to a managed cloud-based environment. And what that really means is that we're no longer doing our own system upgrades. We're performing scheduled platform upgrades, so we're staying far more current with the versioning of our GIS. It's also hosted in AWS, which means there's greater redundancies there. Uptime is very nearly, 2-3 nines on a platform like that. So yeah, it has reduced the lift on the GIS team and the operations team to do routine maintenance. And, updating the platform as a whole is a very big lift. So offloading all of that and allowing them to be more project-oriented has been a great win for us. One of our enhancements for this current fiscal year has been a strategic plan project, which is underway. We're kind of wrapping up phase 1, stakeholder engagement, information gathering. And we're about to enter phase 2. We anticipate the entirety of the project be ready for presentation by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Part of what that's helping us with, we haven't had a strategic plan done in IT since 2010.
It's probably changed a little bit since then.
The landscape's changed a little bit, and I think it's important to mention really quickly that that one was kind of like, here's your strategic plan. It was presented, and then it's in a binder on a shelf. We plan on continuing the engagement with this vendor. We're very pleased with the work that they're doing so far and the engagement that we've had with them, and we really want it to be more of a living document that evolves over time as we learn of budgetary enhancements, constraints, personnel changes, things of that nature. And as you can see in the slide, it's providing some guidance on our mission, vision, staffing, definitely, project prioritization. So yeah, we're really excited about that. And then, so we're going to, in this age of everything becomes software as a service eventually, we're moving from persistent licenses of our Office suites, that would be your Microsoft, your Adobe, things of that nature. And it's a multi-year process or multi-fiscal year process, but moving that to the software as a service is much like the GIS platform. You're always up to date, you're always on the most recent version. And as an added bonus with our push towards ADA compliance on the website, these tools, or the new versions, have tools built in for real-time compliance checking for ADA, which is really was like kind of like the last straw. It was just like, okay, we got to get away from persistent licensing. Performance measures, you know, a lot of these speak for themselves. We're looking for 3 nines of uptime percentage, which is about 8.5 hours of downtime per year. So far year to date, we're right on the number for that, and we'd like to continue that into FY27. The difference between server uptime percentage and software uptime percentage is sometimes that piece of hardware can actually be up, but the application that it's running is having issues. And we've done very, very well, as you can see with this. Funny thing is I'm putting this slide deck together and putting the finishing touches on it. Yesterday, we experienced a roughly 3-hour outage of our ERP system. So those numbers might dip a little bit in this current quarter. Part of the aforementioned, and that's also, as we had talked about earlier in some of our accomplishments, that's a brand new tool this fiscal year that we've implemented that tracks those critical pieces of hardware and the software that's running on them. The other part of that is our help desk ticketing software, which integrates directly with our endpoint management system, which is a really nice tool to have. We can tie tickets to pieces of hardware and end users that are already in that underlying system. What you'll see here with these numbers, I kind of want to just briefly explain how you have some tickets that are open for multiple days as you're pursuing a solution, and you have some tickets that are closed instantaneously, right? So this 2.5 hours is an average of some kind of wildly different, you know, high and low point numbers. So I figured that was important to point out. A portion of that ticketing system that we actually only very recently stood up is this feedback system. So when you open a ticket through the software or through the portal as an end user, once you receive confirmation of resolution, you have the ability to provide, I think it's a 5-star system on how satisfied you are with the product. And so far, we're getting really good feedback on that. One thing I want to point out on the bounce rate, a typo in my original version was discovered. So we'll get to that in a sec. Average website session duration, we want to see that either remain stable or increase, for obvious reasons for end user engagement. Unique visitors per year, you know, it's not just the residents that visit the site. We have a thriving tourism industry, obviously, a lot of people, a lot of events, things of that nature. So we would really like to see that increase year over year. And I think as part of the website redesign that was mentioned in the session before me, that we'll see success on that. And the bounce rate, for those that don't know what the website bounce rate is, it's the percentage of visitors that see one and only one page on the site and then they leave. They're not exploring the site. They're getting to the site and they're either finding what they need or they're not happy with what they're seeing and they leave. So currently we're sitting at 48%. Oh, and my notes are gone. So I have some notes here. Obviously, our webmaster is our subject matter expert on this. But as far as what's average, 25 to 40% bounce rate is considered exemplary. 50 to 70% is common, but not ideal, right? So you'd really want to hedge on the lower end of that. And we're hoping that the site redesign will include, well, we know that the site redesign is going to include some more engaging content, you know, the thematic choices and things that are made by the leadership on that project will hopefully drive engagement and get that number to go lower.
Brian, I don't want to rush you, but I just want you to know we're about 2/3 of the way through time. We got I think you get 6 minutes.
Okay, well then we won't get into the additional statistics that are available for your review, and then we'll just go ahead and get into the enhancements if that's okay. The personnel enhancements that were submitted by our department, the challenge, limited staff on the analysis side of the house. So you've got your analysis team, which is GIS, the permitting and licensing suite, and our ERP suite. We run into bandwidth challenges all the time, and I'm sure you're going to hear this from every department. I already heard it in the presentation before me. Our idea is to have 2 analysts in each of those disciplines, right? Kind of a lead analyst and a secondary analyst in all 3 of the disciplines, ERP, EP&L, and GIS. So our request was for 2 of the more junior level analyst positions. Didn't make it this year, that's okay. The second one is the fire department historically, and as I think all of you guys know, I've been here a long time, and the fire department, they're gamers, right? They're going to do whatever is asked of them, and a lot of times technology-based products are falling to captains, battalion chiefs, things of that nature. These guys are smart and they're really good, but they're firemen by trade. And we were lucky enough to get some consulting money in FY26 to bring on an analyst consultant to assist in, they have one very large implementation that they're in right now, but just to assist them so you're not having firemen, basically not doing their job. So this was included in the budget, and that is the conversion of that consulting role into an employment agreement position. And we'll be looking to continue that into years into the future.
Mr. Chairman, can I hang out at that a second? So this says that the cost is $133,800, but if you're saying it's a conversion from a consultant to a staff member, there's not $133,000 added to the budget.
No, sir. That's the enhancement for the consulting position was an even 100 for 26. The conversion takes that with the salary and benefits number that goes along with the employment agreement, takes that to 133.8. So that's an important designation.
But it is new money because it was funded out of one-time use last year.
That's correct.
why it's new money.
Got it. Okay.
No, I've forgotten that part. My apologies.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly. So I forget how many years ago it was. I believe it was 6 or 7 years ago. The police union negotiated take-home vehicles, which involved the rapid acquisition of a bunch of police cars. And part of the budget that went into that was upfitting them. Of course, you've got radios, light bars, but part of that is this ruggedized laptop that serves as their mobile data terminal. And the fleet has not aged out the way that was anticipated at the time. So we've got aging rugged laptops in these cruisers. So the proposal initially was $100,000 to replace up to 35 of those laptops. They're significantly more expensive than your average, floor issue laptop. We've been informed that the pace of replacement of these squad cars is going to increase. So we've reduced that number in accordance to the number of cars that are supposedly supposedly is a terrible word, but are planned to be put on the road in FY27. So we've reduced that to meet the number that we wanted to meet as far as replacements in conjunction with the replacements of the cars. And then finally, the chart of accounts and workflows in the in our current ERP software are in rough shape from a series of decisions that were made during implementation to usage patterns over the years. And we've identified a product that we really think is going to help us identify issues and help us refine workflows, roles, and permissions within the system. And that's the line item you see there. And so there's an acquisition cost in there. There is an ongoing cost that is roughly a third of that 18.5 figure, but I actually apologize, I don't have that in front of me.
What's ERP?
That is our Munis system. That's our resource planning, that's budget, general ledger, those sorts of things.
Stands for Enterprise Resource Planning.
Okay, so this is I have a thing in my notes here of like, that might be a little jarring, but we can explain. So you'll see that there's this 42% jump, and I want to be clear that This is not new money, to Mr. Thorpe's point previously. This is the reallocating of funds that have historically been dispersed throughout the departments and centralizing them within IT. And if I may skip ahead into the additional information slide, there's a bullet in here that I just want you to see, and I'm happy to go back. So the supplies line includes special projects. And the special project that's included in this is that there's the potential merger and upgrade of computer-aided dispatch between Anne Arundel and Annapolis. So there's $343,000 in special projects, which is why you're going to see a tremendous jump there. In addition to that, contract services includes roughly $500,000 of all the city's cell phone budget being reallocated from the departments into the IT budget. So that's where you're going to see a very large increase there, and I'm going as fast as I can, Harry, I promise. And the capital outlay line includes this massive number of taking all of the software support and maintenance and subscription fees out of the departments and under IT. And that if we had more time, I would tell you about all of the benefits that go along with doing so. But there are numerous, and it's really going to improve our posturing and our ability to reduce overhead in the long term. So that kind of thing, that behind the curtain work that I was telling you about on the first slide that we don't necessarily talk about, like it's kind of like Fight Club, first rule, you don't talk about it. So there's been plenty of that going on. I'm sure you all seen the discussions from our webmaster regarding ADA compliance. We've selected a vendor for end user training for our content providers, and that training is going to be underway shortly. And as the mayor's office staff said in their presentation, the website redesign kickoff is underway. There's a project plan in place, and Annie is almost ready for prime time. This is a public-facing AI concierge. It developed completely in-house by our webmaster, Ina Young. It's incredibly impressive, and we can't wait to show it to everybody. So we're about probably 4 to 6 weeks minimum away from releasing that, but we're very, very excited. We're put it out to the departments for testing now. We just want to make sure it's perfect, or as close to perfect as it can be before we put it out.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I've got a bunch of questions, but I'll hold back. Alderwoman O'Neill,
Thank
you're
you.
up.
I will limit mine to a couple of questions. So thank you for describing the capital outlay. Huge increase. I looked at that number and was shocked. So I guess it's a question for our budget analyst. The $2,194,000. I would expect to see at least a large portion of that, 90% of that, come off of other budgets, come out of other budgets. How does that compare? So if I were looking across the boards, in every other department, it should be decreased, the capital outlay, I'm guessing?
Correct. It's going to be their capital outlay. Some of them had software within contractual services, so you'll see a decrease there as well. It may not completely tie out though, because also any enhancements that were included for software for FY27 were moved to ITS's budget as well.
Okay, so from the presentation from the mayor's office, the 3 software upgrades that they were looking to make would be included in this portion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
thank
it's
you very
in
much.
capital or it's in contract?
It's in capital outlay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I've noticed that we're doing quite a bit of cybersecurity, but we have not filled the cybersecurity specialist position. Is there a reason why that is not filled?
We've changed course on that. Rather than, so I don't want to get too long-winded on this. We're going to use an existing class spec. We're really trying to simplify and use as few job class specs as possible. So rather than a standalone position that would have required development for yet another career ladder, yet another job class code, we're using the existing ITS network engineer class code on that. And so that's why you see that where it was approved in '26, unfilled, this is actually getting filled in '26, but we've changed course in conjunction with some discussions with human resources and the city manager. We're going to use an existing class code. So while that position in and of itself is gone, the role exists, just with a different class code.
Yeah, I think the way that I would phrase that is the intention has not changed, but what we've tried to do is to leverage the existing job class structure to provide some additional flexibility and also to sort of speed, as Brian said, speed that process along a little bit. So by doing that through those discussions, that's in the works. So there is every intention to have someone who's really got cybersecurity as a primary, that's they're responsible for cybersecurity in the city. That ends up being sort of a subset of what falls under network engineering writ large. So sort of a technical answer, but every intention to do that. There is absolutely a need for that.
Just to add on to that a little bit, like as we go through the strategic plan and staffing recommendations are given and department, hopefully it grows over time. We have every intention of following that mantra of keeping the number of job class codes to a minimum for simplicity's sake, for flexibility's sake.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Alderman Thorpe, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Your performance measures are very impressive. So appreciate the work you put into that.
Yes, I concur.
On slide 3, and you talked about it briefly in your discussion, but the website bounce rate of less than 60%. And you mentioned typo.
Yeah, so when I became aware that that was 60 and not 50, it has been changed. That was not my intent to make it 60%. It was my intent to make it 50, so.
And it says 50 up there?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Got it. Thank you very much.
And it's been revised on the file in the drive.
Okay, thank you very much. So I want to follow up on Alderwoman O'Neill's point about the capital outlay. And I would like the Finance Committee to get a little deeper dive into this, because as we work through a budget process, it makes sense. I don't question what you're doing here at all. But to give us a level of confidence, I think we're talking $2-point-something million. So what I would like to see is a spreadsheet that says 2.3 million was moved from the departments to IT, taken out of their budgets. 2.1 of that, or 2.5 of that, was put into IT, and then enhancements over and above that was X number of dollars. Otherwise, we really have no confidence as a Finance Committee what happened here. And so could you provide us that kind of detail?
Yeah, we can work together on that and get that to you, absolutely.
Okay, and I would ask you to run that through the city manager as well, just to make sure that we're all speaking apples to apples to apples.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and not only that, as part of this, we actually moved some of our software out of miscellaneous contractual services as well. We can generate a report. We have an inventory of what was moved in dollar amounts. Oh, I'm sorry. We have an inventory of what was moved and the dollar amounts. So I can work with Capri and we can kind of show you how that shook out.
That'd be great.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very, very
We
much.
can make a nice Sankey diagram out of it, where it's flowing.
We talked about website. I just would like to add that to your due outs as well with you and the mayor's office to provide the city council what the future is of the website. And I think what I'm looking for is a high-level brief of what the strategy, the vision is for the new website, and then more specifically, how much you plan to spend on it and who's managing that project. Having managed a couple new websites, $4 becomes $100 pretty quickly.
Yes, sir. So we've been a partner with our website platform vendor for quite some time now. And part of our contract with them actually includes a periodic website redesign at no cost. It's part of our contract. It's supposed to be every 4 years. That fourth year came up last year. We negotiated with them to put it off for a year so that we could have we knew we were going to have a new administration one way or the other. So we pushed it back a year. They were kind enough to agree to that. So the baseline number, as far as from the hosting company and the assistance that they provide through the web design, there's no cost to that. And from an ITS perspective, our in-house staff, namely, the webmaster, is going to be working with office, their consultant that was mentioned earlier. And so really, as far as a nuts and bolts perspective, it's included in our support and maintenance costs with the vendor.
All right, so that, I think, could be great news. It could be bad news, right? Sometimes if it's free, it's worth what you paid for. And I think we have to be open with ourselves. And I don't look back at all. I look forward. But the website's pretty clunky. And I think those of us now who use it a lot, I can navigate it pretty quickly. But the public who goes onto it to try to find out how to watch the city council meeting, just that basic kind of thing, much less put in a report. And together with your point about Annie and all that, I guess my question would be, are you satisfied with this arrangement that we will create a website that you stand proud of as the director of Annapolis IT that is useful for the residents?
Without hesitation, yes, sir. I think the partnership between IT and the mayor's office, I forget what the title of the consultant that they brought in, but in our monthly directors meeting, we recently received a project overview slideshow that we'll provide to you, project plan. There's going to be a ton of both internal and external stakeholder engagement that goes along with that. The platform itself supports enough change, the degree of change that I think this administration would like to see, and speaking to your point, some more engaging content, reduce that bounce rate, get people to stick around and explore a little bit. So my confidence in the platform, without hesitation, yes, I believe in that, and I believe in the team that we've assembled to guide the redesign forward.
Thank you, and I would ask you and the city manager if there's any problems or any need for resources or this is so important for the residents to let us know.
I agree with that, and I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
My next question is credit cards, and this kind of goes to your point about consolidating efforts. Yesterday, we heard from the director of Recs and Parks that she doesn't take credit cards at Pitt Moyer. A couple days ago at Transportation, we don't take credit cards on our buses. It seems to me that to transition to a new technology for any department head on their own is a challenging task for a person who's already busy. Is this something that you would be interested in taking on in the future? And do you see a way forward? And I also might be looking at city manager because I might be adding workload. And is there anything in the budget now from either a staff capacity or financial to move into a more efficient way using technology? And I'm purposely staying away from the word credit card because that's a possible solution to a problem. So I'm talking about the problem, to move to technology in our payments across the city.
So I will take a little bit of let's start with Rec and Parks, and I'm going to take a little bit of ownership of, we're behind on something here. We have in place a new merchant. We have the machines. We haven't had the time to roll it out for Rec and Parks. It's tap to pay. It's an entirely new merchant account for a number of reasons in which we won't bring up here, that we haven't been able to synergize and get it pushed out, but it is absolutely a priority. The Rec and Parks Department, both Pitt Moyer and Stanton, will get these new, the new merchant account and new machines as soon as we're able to, from a bandwidth perspective. To the buses. Marcus and I, this is something that comes up to Marcus on a frequent basis. And Marcus and I, I'm sorry, Director Moore and I have spoken about this on several occasions. That is an obvious need. There are challenges that go along with that that are unique to transit. But it's in an exploration phase now. There's vendor engagement happening. The existing fare box vendor has a solution. The merchant account that goes along with it provides a separate set of challenges because this is a series of very small transactions, which means that you're hitting up against that flat rate on credit cards versus a percentage, right? So it really, the agreement that you come up with the merchant account and the underlying legislation on, from citywide on how we handle those fees is an important part when you're dealing in thousands, tens of thousands of microtransactions. So there's some complexities there. Marcus and I have discussed them, and we're actively seeking a solution to that.
I will add to that there's a component of all this that also sits in the Department of Finance. The vendor that he was referring to, there are a variety of vendors, and depending upon the solution you've chosen, they sometimes really only work with one particular vendor. And what that means for the city is that we end up having to maintain multiple financial connections then with multiple vendors. And that does get more complicated from a finance perspective. To the extent that we can, it's helpful to sort of be on the same platform across these different things, but there are limits to that. But as this is definitely an area where it's a partnership between the department, who's the using department, they're the ones who are actually interacting with the public, IT, and finance. And it really does take all three of those working in concert to really make that work well together.
Is it a fair question to ask you to tell me today, or to take the question, what is the plan? What is the date that we plan to have a solution?
I think that's a fair question. I'm not prepared to give you an answer today. I think that I would speak for both of us in that there are a number of those things that we would have much preferred to have gotten to the end of sooner. And so part of our long-term challenge is, management challenge is taking an honest look at where are we, what are the roadblocks we tend to run into, and how do we start moving those roadblocks out of the way so that we get to those endpoints sooner?
I would ask you if you could get us that, and maybe add if there are roadblocks that the city council could help you get over, and if it's worth it. In other words, I'm about to ask the question of if you had 5% more, what would you do? If you had 5% less, what would you give up? Ms. Buckland, I'm not trying to drive this to the top of your priority list if it's not, but I think the residents are looking for this, so we need an honest answer to them. Hey, we're looking to do this in 2029, or we're looking to do this in whatever. So, okay. How much time do I have? I have a minute. So let me get right to those questions. Two questions. If this finance committee looked at you and said, we're going to give you 5% more on your budget, what would you do with it? What did you give up in this budget as you negotiated your budget that you are worried about, or that you think you could do your job better if we were able to support you with more funds?
positions, people. There is no other answer. We were just talking about or the city manager was just speaking of identify roadblocks. And in our department, our staffing levels have remained static for a decade. Long before, I was promoted into this position. So it just, blanket terms, it would be staffing. And I want to be very careful in saying that, right? I understand the constraints with which the city is operating. But yeah, if you were going to just magically summon 5%, that's without hesitation where I would put it.
Seems like you had that slide up about enhancements where there was one you got and one you didn't get, or the two people you didn't get. But that seems like a ready-made answer too. If you had to cut back, you'd cut back the thing that you've got an extra on, and if you had more, you'd take the things you wanted but didn't get, right?
Yeah, it's not punting. It's honest.
Got it. So, but let me ask that question. So if you had to get, so first of all, I think I'm inclined to ask the other directors, now that you've consolidated it, would you prefer to put one more person in IT or one more person in your department? Because I think
Please don't do that.
but what you do crosses all the departments, so.
I understand, and every department is equally important to the operations of the city.
I hear
And
Good answer.
I would humbly request that you don't put me in that position.
I will humbly not do it. Thank you. And so if you had to give up something, what would you give up?
I'm going to make a joke directed at her. I'd give those cell phones back. No, that's obviously a far more difficult question, right? So 5% of $6 million is $300,000. And unfortunately, even though I was forewarned, I forgot to come equipped to deal with that question.
Can I answer part of that question for you?
Yes, ma'am, please do.
So there are several reasons behind the centralization of software. There's oversight pieces of that, there's cybersecurity pieces of that, there's synergy pieces of that. And of course, the other desire is to make sure that we don't have duplication either. And so I think that part of certainly my hope is that this arrangement will help give us some better insight into streamlining our software footprint overall. And that's not a 5% today reduction, but to me, that's an investment in the long term of trying to streamline our software outlay.
All right.
I want to thank you because that is something that I really did want to get to, and she summarized it very well. And I think I had mentioned it earlier in the presentation of some of the benefits of bringing this under the IT umbrella is we're going to embark on an audit of where are we duplicating, where's there overlap, where we have multiple departments using similar software, where a site license of one software could serve the entirety of the city government, and there's inherent cost savings there. And then the other side of it, as she mentioned, is the cybersecurity aspect, right? We have a vendor vetting process that we undertake when we onboard new software. Anything from as minor as a browser plugin to, enterprise permitting and licensing or what have you. And not only do those vendors have to be vetted from a cybersecurity and safety aspect, but in this day and age, they have to be vetted for ADA compliance for any public face, things of that nature. So, I'm so glad that she brought that up because I really did want to get that in there today, that there's a lot of benefit to moving it in-house.
I would encourage you to track that as you go forward. And next year when we're sitting here, point out, building on the spreadsheet that you're going to provide us about the costs and go into next year, I think that's a real opportunity for you to provide information about how you're making our organization better. Thank you very much for a
Yes,
great
sir.
brief.
Yeah, and just one more thing about that is the plan is a formalized audit of these subscriptions with tangible outputs as far as changes that are made, cost savings that are associated with that. So yeah, that is absolutely part of the plan.
Thank you. Great.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So when we put that money in last year for the fire department IT analyst, my understanding at the time was there was a specific project they needed to get done, and we wanted it as out of one-time money. Very explicitly, I was sat there and made the argument because there was a project that needed to get done. It seems, it just seems to boggle my mind that we would say, instead of having a IT administrator who's going to work for all the departments, well, we're going to fund the one that only works for the fire department. So I'm looking at the city manager or somebody from the finance department to, I mean, or maybe you can ask this, but I'm guessing if you ask for both, the question is, why the heck would we do somebody who's only going to work for one department instead of somebody who's going to work for all the departments?
Well, inevitably, in a department as small as ours, there's overlap everywhere, right? There's no one in ITS. There probably, as long as I'm around, won't ever be a situation where we find ourselves in where one staff member is siloed and works on specifically one thing, right? So onboarding this position to a full-time employment agreement, yes, the primary objective of that role is to continue the furtherance of the ongoing project. Other projects, there are other modules within that one product that we'd like to see and the fire department would like to see implemented. But day to day, 7-hour day, 1,820 hours a year, that's another set of hands in the department that can assist us on any manner of things. And the skill set required for that degree of position is wide ranging. And there's benefit citywide, even though the focus, the stated focus and the actual focus of that position would be to continue to support fire from a technological perspective in any of their ventures.
You got anything to add, Ms. Buckland?
From my perspective, the question of them being sort of the point person for fire projects does not mean that they are unavailable to anyone else. And I think from my perspective, this is why that position belongs in ITS and not in the fire department. Because Brian should be able to tap that person for other things. Yes, we have a proximate need in fire, that's ongoing, that's fine. But that's not exclusive, right? He should be able to use that person for a variety of things. The same way that, you know, there's a point person that works with planning and zoning because there's a particular piece of software that planning and zoning is sort of the business owner of. So, you know, Stephanie Connor, it works a lot with that department. That's the primary thing on her plate, but she also gets pulled into other things. So we're seeing it in the budget because of how it's labeled, and we don't specifically call out the other people. But this is why I want it in ITS, is because it shouldn't be.
No, I don't doubt that it should be in ITS, but my concern is that if we fund this as is, then we're going to have somebody spending all their time working on fire when we've got IT needs all over the place, and the need for IT within fire was supposed to be distinct. It was supposed to have an end, and my worry is that it is not appearing to have an end. And I think when we funded that, there was a discrete project that was like, okay, let's get us over this hump. But there's any number of others. I mean, we just heard all sorts of them about how we could be better utilizing our IT capacity outside of the fire department. And I'm loath to fund this right now because it seems like the status quo is they're just going to go work for the fire department. So it's not a question. That's a statement. Can we go back to the slide about the personnel enhancements? I just want to see those numbers again. I guess I could pull it up on my computer. Thank you. Okay. So the difference in price is about $33,000, $32,000, 33. Okay, thank you.
On a position by position, yeah.
Right. Okay. Moving on, can we talk some more about the aided dispatch and why that is needed, what the benefit is of that, the Anne Arundel County Police aided dispatch? What's the deal with that? What is it?
I will, for the minute details, I would defer to the police.
That's fine. I can ask them
And
about it.
I'm not trying to pass the buck here.
No, that's fine.
I will share with you a high level of, so Anne Arundel County is unifying their police and fire dispatch. So when you call 911 and you're within Anne Arundel County right now, phone isn't a dispatcher. The first thing they ask you is, police, fire, what's your emergency, right? And they route you. So the county's stated goal with this project is the dispatch is unified, you're skipping that step, you're saving time, response time. Our fire department is dispatched by Anne Arundel County. Has been,
Yep.
world was young. And the idea here and the intrigue for the police department is, again, if we have been invited to participate and this is the rate we are going and the service that we provide our constituents is improved, then this needs to at least be considered. There are some monetary discussions that are going on that I'm not well versed in.
Yeah, I think I get what you're getting at. I
yeah.
think you've answered my question enough.
Okay,
That's
but
good.
yeah, this would be, should we participate, our upfront capital investment in the implementation of the system.
Got it. Thank you. The software analyst consultant is something that you guys have $200,000 for. Can you explain to me what that does, why it's better to have it as a consultant than a staff member?
This is, again, small department, small staff, specific needs during implementations, report building, data gathering, and that's available to all three disciplines within our analyst group, right? GIS, permitting and licensing, and ERP. We have a wonderful partnership with a consultant that works very closely with Stephanie Connor on the permitting and licensing project. I mean, to the point where these are regularly scheduled. Sometimes we need, we don't have a need on staff day to day for a database administrator, somebody that's going to sit at their desk all day long and run SQL queries. But when I need it, or we need it, we need it.
Okay, so let me just put a fine point on that question. It is not $200,000 going to one person.
Oh,
This
absolutely
is-
not. No,
okay,
sir. It's spread
that makes
through
perfect
numerous
sense.
vendors. Yes, sir.
Got it. Thank you. Maybe we can update that in the budget book to have an S on the end, but that's, all right. Let's see, what else did I have here? So last year we funded a strategic plan consultant, and you talked a little bit about updating that strategic plan. I don't see money in this budget for strategic plan. Is that, are you comfortable with that? Is that we've given you the money last year, you're good, now it's all in-house? How does that strategic planning relate to the budget at this point?
So the 75,000, again, I'm not sure if it was sourced in one time or not for the strategic plan, but I think it was. Yeah, I think it was too. I just didn't want to say something that I wasn't certain was true. This is for the entirety of the initial build, and I spoke a little bit about our desire for this to be an ongoing engagement, for it to be a living document. And things like that are exactly why that pot of money we were just discussing exists. Where if I need several hours of re-engagement because of changing circumstances or our desires or administration's desires, I know that they're going to be embarking on their own kind of city strategic plan at some point. If we need to change course or tack to vibe with the outcome of that, that's exactly why we've got that pot of money for consulting services that's available across the disciplines.
Gotcha. Thank you. My last question for you, I think, is just what's IT, well, maybe I'm going to make this into two questions. I'll start with what is IT doing to encourage the use of these new AI tools across city staff? We heard about Annie, external facing, internal facing. What is IT doing to encourage that? And we talked a little bit last summer about the project, but can you provide us an update? And frankly, do you need any money to do it? Because it seems to me like a place we could really improve efficiency and save money.
Short answer is, for the money part, stay tuned. So a big area of focus, obviously, within our strategic planning process is development of AI usage policy, for which we already have developed kind of a wireframe, but I want some more. The vendor that we're using for the strategic plan has an extensive AI background, so they're going to be a great resource in helping us flesh that out. But it's going to be a big area of focus, and when we present the outcome of the strategic plan, you'll see that's really helping us drive. So A&E is obviously kind of like your public-facing portion of that. The other part of that is I just got back from a conference from one of our main vendors. They're the provider of our ERP product, our EP&L product. They also provide several other services for us in the city. And most of the sessions that I participated in or not most, but a large chunk of the sessions that I participated in is where are they going with AI, right? How are we going to combat silos? How are we going to allow staff to leverage AI to peer into our own data and easily generate meaningful reports when that's not something that's easy to do now? And I was very happy to see what's in development. There's a few things that are actually available now that I'm working with our rep to see what the lift is as far as a good example of that is AI-powered accounts payable. And that's something that's actually available in our current version, on-prem, no pressure to go software as a service, which is an entirely different discussion for a later day as far as these services go. But so the engagement with the vendors as far as where are they going with their own product and their AI development is a big part of where we want to be.
Great. Could you come back to us with what it would cost to have, right now we have access to, I think of there's sort of three big players here. Right now we all have access to Gemini on our city ones. I had to ask you to get that activated for us.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is if people within city government wanted to use enterprise versions of OpenAI software or Anthropic software, I'd like for that to be an option. Unless you have some strategic disagreement, which I'd be happy to hear about. But what I'm looking for is a cost estimate to have, let's say, 10 enterprise seats of each one of those, so that if folks want to try them out and encourage that experimentation, that I'd love to know how much that would cost.
Absolutely, we can get the costing on that. What I really want to see before, we can get you cost information, but a big part of that, where we, I think, as an organization want to be first, is have that usage policy. How are we safeguarding PII and those sorts of things? We want to make sure that our end users are bound by a set of rules that prevents the sorts of nightmare scenario things that we've all read about with protected information being fed into a large language model. So absolutely, I can have costing information in hand and provided to you, but we really want to take this in a stepwise manner, develop the usage policy, explore options, and then if it's cool, we already know what it's going to cost and we can come back to you guys.
Yeah, part of why I want to potentially allocate money towards this is because of that PII issue and making sure that right now we have Enterprise Gemini, we can go ahead and put information into it, and it's not going to go outside. And so I know there are plenty of city staff who are using these other tools, but they can't do anything in regards to PII with those because, and should.
At least shouldn't be.
Yeah, they shouldn't be. And so getting those enterprise versions, if people want them, seems like a good opportunity. And then, if we come back next year and we've allocated $5,000 to this and none of it's spent, no harm, no foul. But I want to make sure we have that pot of money. I'm looking to, I'm not 100%, but I want to have
It
that
sounds to me
option.
like you and I want to be in the same place.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not operating only on my limited knowledge of the topic, that we're engaging experts and they're guiding us towards a safe usage policy.
Sure, thank you. We're just about at time. Alderwoman Alsop Johnson, you got any questions you want to ask? No. Okay.
Learning process, and I'm really interested.
You got it. I think I tried to already hit a bunch of Alderman Savage's questions. Anything last from Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderman Thorpe?
One question, you can take this and write it down, and maybe it's for the city manager too. Listening to your brief, first of all, it's a fantastic brief. You did it, the brief, the presentation, you're tremendous. If we were to not fund that second IT specialist, I would like to know what would not happen that you are looking to happen.
We're speaking of the one that Alderman Huntley was discussing.
Drill down into, exactly. So you don't have to answer it now. I'd actually ask you to put some thought into that and let us know what it would cost. Don't read anything into it other than, yes, maybe it is a possibility to cut it. So, but we would like to know what impact that would have. And if you could put some thought into that and let us know, that'd be great.
To the three of you.
Yes, she's collecting, Kayla's collecting all the due out. So we're doing this with every department head.
Yeah, I think she's put together a spreadsheet, so there will be some written.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
the link. Okay. Just stick it in there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Not only a great presentation, but we ended right on time. All right. With that, I think, Mr. Paquin, I think we're good. Appreciate you being here. We've
Appreciate
got
your
some
time.
more
Thank you
business.
very much.
Thank you. All right. I should pull up our Finance Committee agenda. All right. We do have a couple supplemental appropriations and fund transfers to consider. The first is a $3,000 grant to Recreation and Parks. I think initially we were planning on doing this yesterday so Rec and Parks would be here, but it's also not a lot of money and it's just us accepting money, which I always like to say is my favorite kind of supplemental appropriation. So perhaps Ms. Buckland can speak to this so we can vote on it.
Sorry, I will need to pull that up.
It's a $3,000 grant that they're accepting to do adaptive tennis. Seems seems like sunshine and rainbows and apple pie. So I guess if I can ask my colleagues, does anybody have any questions about the supplemental appropriation? Anything you want to know?
No.
Nope. Does anybody? No. Carmen said no. Is there a motion to provide a favorable recommendation to SA 2026?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Beautiful. All right, next up, I closed my agenda. Next up is our fund transfer, which is a little bit bigger. And this, I'm guessing, maybe Ms. Buckland, you can speak to, because this is about our fleet operations, which I know has been a important topic. So what we're looking at here is basically transferring some money from our non-allocated debt service to our fleet operations. So if you want to maybe just give us a bit of an overview, but really my main question is going to be, how do we undercount our debt service? Because this is now the second fund transfer that we're taking from that unallocated or from that essentially unspent debt service?
It's the other way, not undercounting it. The part of what happened this year was that we did not actually go to market with as many bonds as was authorized in the budget. So part of our task and part of the discipline that the budget team provides and finance provides is trying to not let excess bonds, because then you have a specific timeline to use them and you start paying debt service on them. So part of this is the result of that discipline. So because we didn't let the full value of the bonds, we therefore don't have the full value of the debt service on them, and therefore then these funds can be used to fill in other gaps such as this one. Yeah, Capri, if you have anything you want to add.
As far as the transfer to fleet, it was a budget deficiency error that we didn't fund. We allocate the expenses for vehicle repair and maintenance to each department. Enough was not funded to planning and zoning for the transfer, so this corrects that.
I'm sorry, where did planning and zoning come in?
Planning is, that's what the allocation is for. So it's going directly to fleet. So in the budget, it would have been allocated to planning and zoning repair and maintenance vehicles. But because we under budgeted it, this is gonna put the funding directly to fleet as it would with that transfer.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure I understand, but I don't think there's a problem with it. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. Does planning and zoning have their own vehicles that is not in central services?
Yes, so for FY '26,
Well, yeah. So the vehicles that the city has, there are a few pool vehicles, but most of them are specifically assigned either to specific people or to specific departments. So the inspectors, for example, in planning and zoning, have vehicles that help take them from place to place as they're going around the city doing their job. Traditionally, the cost of repair and maintenance for vehicles has been allocated out to the different departments that have vehicles. And one of the things that happens right away as the year starts is that money then gets sort of charged against and pulled into just the overall fleet maintenance bucket that then fleet actually draws from day in and day out, rather than this bill goes to this one and this bill goes to this one, right? In this particular case, that pre-allocation to planning and zoning was underdone. But because of where we are in the year, we're not going to sort of do that dance of allocate it to planning and zoning and immediately transfer it to fleet. We're just going to stick it in fleet and be done with it.
All right, thank you.
Makes sense. Any additional questions about FT 926? No? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to make a favorable recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Last up, we have R826, which I wanted to have a bit of a discussion with the committee. To me, it makes sense to consider this at the same time as our fee schedule. So Alderman Thorpe, I know you had an amendment. I'm happy to talk about that. I don't think any of this, no, I'm confident, none of this is time sensitive. It can go at the same time as it starts in July, at the same time as FY27. So it seems to me that we should put a pin in this and consider it the same day that we consider the fees. Does anybody have an objection to that? Any discussion on that? Thoughts?
I just don't understand why we just don't
Why we don't get it done?
just get it.
I mean, that's kind of fair too.
I mean, only because we're either going to do it or not.
Yeah.
And while there may be a discussion about the future of this, I think for fiscal year '27, there's no discussion about a change in policy.
Yeah, the die is cast, as it were. Yeah, I mean, hard to argue against, let's just get it done. That's what I always say, so.
And I think the organizations are in their planning phase as we speak, so.
Yeah. All right, well, yeah, I'm fine with that. You had an amendment. Do you want to describe it?
Yeah, I would like to amend the list to add East Porter Rockin', an event that's been going on for many years, brings 40 local bands to an event that's exceptionally widely attended. And they've put more than $500,000 into charities over the years they've been doing it. And I would add, propose amendment to add East Porter Rockin'. The fees waived would be approximately $7,000 based on the cost last year of $6,700.
So I'm going to count that as a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Anybody want to discuss Alderman Thorpe's Amendment 1?
I would
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Well, I support that. That's an organization that myself and my family has been involved with for many, many years. And in particular, my spouse has done hundreds of hours of work for them over the years. And so I understand that completely. As far as the waiving of fees of 7,000, is it just because that would be their total fees?
Specifically, it would waive the fees for police and fire. And the cost of that, I said last year, it's really this year, 2025-6, because our fiscal year, it was $6,700. So I think the specific answer to your question is we're waiving the fees for police and fire. And the number for planning purposes for the finance department, that was $6,700.
Okay. I think that it also talks about a larger discussion or a longer discussion in we're waiving fees for some events and how that is affecting specific departments, specifically police and fire, when they are sending employees to these events, to work these events, it is most often overtime. And as we see our overtime numbers increase over the years, fire has almost $2 million in overtime, I think, for FY26, fairly close, give or take a couple $100,000. If we continue to add events where we're waiving fees, that's just more, I don't want to use the word taxing, but it's more burden on our budget. So I think it's a longer discussion. Like I said, I support adding it this year, but I think it's a bigger discussion to have on all of the events that we're waiving fees for.
Alderwoman O'Neill and Mr. Chairman, I absolutely agree with that. I think a review, I'm going to say exactly what you said, slightly in different words, but 100% agreement. I think the city council and I think the city staff should take a look at this policy as to what we waive, what we don't, who's asking for it, who's not, what's the criteria, and to your point, the financial impact, especially since on the overtime thing, I plan to ask all the people who would do overtime, as I did yesterday with Rex and Parks, or the harbor master, how do we set a goal and objective for overtime? Because I think that's a metric they should use. So I would totally agree with you that we should look at this policy and what is the city taxpayer getting out of this policy? And is it the right use of money, realizing we're giving up in revenue, so, yeah.
I think this is a good discussion to have. Maybe we should put it on our agenda for things to talk about after the budget season. I would just put it more on the flip side, which is, do we need to be expending as much money on these as we are? It's less, I'm generally supportive of the idea that we should be waiving the fees, but why are we having such insanely high costs on some of these? And my understanding, yeah, there's police, there's also increasingly we're asking Public Works to put up, these barricades or trash trucks or whatever it is for some of these events. And I think making sure that we keep those costs in check, that would be my priority for it. You looked like maybe you had something to say. No? Okay. Any more discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on Amendment 1 to to R826. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries for the amendment. Is there a favorable recommendation for the legislation as amended?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Beautiful. Motion carries. R826 has received a favorable recommendation from the Finance Committee as amended. With that, we're ready for adjournment. Anybody got anything, last things we need to go over today? Nope. Seeing none? All right. Move to adjourn. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And we're out.
For some reason, I always get tripped up on the motion to adjourn. It's like I'm ready to go.